Hello, thanks for joining me again. I am Dorian Riley, and welcome back to Dorian's Corner, where we talk about all things domestic violence. And what I have been doing is taking you on a journey through my domestic violence journey, basically, and I am explaining it as the A to Z journey, where I go over each letter from A to Z about different ways that the domestic violence has affected my life. So the other videos you'll hear about A through E, and then today I am discussing the letter F, which is fear. So there's a lot of fear that goes on in a domestic violence relationship. The fear of wondering how much worse today is going to be than the day before, wondering how much you may have to endure that day or the coming days or that moment, that second, the next hour, the next minute, because it just comes with a lot of uncertainty. You never know just how bad things are going to get. But one thing I will tell you is it will get bad. It will get worse. Probably be beyond your worst nightmare. You never know just how far it's going to go, one day or the other, which is why so many people have lost their lives to domestic violence. I mean, they really have. That's something that continues to happen in this world. And although I am not by any means or stretch of the imagination trying to make it like it was easy to get out of this type of relationship, that type of relationship, because I am out of that relationship. Thank God I am not in that relationship anymore. But I will say, sometimes people tell you that it is like easy just to kind of just walk out the door and walk away. And I'm just here to tell you, sometimes it's not. It's just not that easy. Not to say that that's not something that that you can do. I mean, it didn't happen overnight for me either. So I would not want to tell you something that's just absolutely not true. I mean, everybody's journey is different, but I will tell you it did not take me just one random thought to know that I needed to leave, and then it just happened just like that. It did not. It took days and days and months and years to just keep coming to the realization that I wasn't in a good space. I needed to get out of that situation. I was worried about what may happen with my kids, would they eventually get hurt from me, continuing in that situation. I had some very rough days, very depressing days where I didn't know if I was going to make it through the day, make it through the night. Some days I just stayed up, just stayed awake, out of fear if I go to sleep would he, try to attack me in my sleep. These were very real fears that I had. And even sometimes now, like even as a survivor, I sometimes do not feel like I am in a safe environment, even though it, by all intents and purposes is a safe environment, but sometimes I still feel like I'm not. I just get those thoughts from the past. It just creeps in sometimes, and it's difficult. It is very difficult to live that way. I try each and every day to make sure that I am not in that same mindset, but to say that it's just like something that happens overnight where all of a sudden you're out of the relationship and you're just like back to your old self. I mean, I would be lying if I said that was the case, because in my journey that has not been the case. It has taken time. It has taken much prayer, much support from family, friends, people around me that has been supporting me in ways that they may not even realize, just by having a conversation with me, like even a hug. I mean, sometimes is all I needed to kind of get back on track and then understand that, okay, there's people that love me. There's people that care about me. so I don't have to feel that that domestic violence relationship, is claiming my life anymore. Because when I was in that relationship, if you did feel like it was claiming my life, felt like that was the only thing that that I had going for myself. Even though that's not something to have, necessarily going for yourself, but it felt like I was just not myself anymore. I didn't see myself as the person I used to be. And that is very difficult to come to that realization. Now, was I afraid? For sure. I had fear all the time. I had fear if we were out in public. I had fear definitely when we were in private. Because the fear grips you so much, it doesn't matter if it's like a ton of people around, because you're still in fear of that person. So it doesn't matter, even if there's people around that you feel like, okay, that person would be able to help me. You just don't see it that way. And it's very hard for me to explain that to someone that probably doesn't understand it. But I totally understand how other people that's not in those situations cannot understand how it feels like it was a million times that we could have walked away and could have just, like, maybe it was a police officer somewhere. We could have just told a police officer. It's not always that way, because eventually you're going to see them later, and then you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for, turning them in and different things like that. But I had to get to the point where I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have to, I guess, bite the bullet and just figure out what's going to happen, to me in doing that. I was at the point where I was just ready for whatever was going to occur. I just was at that point to where whatever happened just happened. I already felt like I had been basically tortured and just been treated so inhumanely that what's the worst that can happen? Even death itself wasn't something that I think I feared anymore, at that point, because I just figured if he's going to do something to me, then he's going to do it, And I remember just sometimes at night, just lying awake in the bed, just emotionally just drained, just totally exhausted from what I was going through, and just not having little or no like happy moments that I could just remember, and just every day just seemed like it was like 72 hours in a day. It just felt like it was that long. It felt like it was just dragging by, because you're somewhere you don't want to be. You're somewhere you're not happy. You're somewhere you're not even feeling human. It just felt like an out-of-body experience. It was just an out-of-body experience. And that's probably the best way I can even describe that feeling. I definitely felt like I was just watching my life pass me by, because I was seeing people in relationships that just seemed like they were so just happy and content and just joyful. And I was sad, because it felt like I didn't know what that was, I had a pretty good upbringing. We have an amazing family. I have a very supportive family. So some people think people that get into domestic violence relationships is because they had a family that wasn't supportive, a family that didn't love them. Well, that's not true at all. I have a very loving family. I always have. So it definitely was not that. It wasn't that. So people try to judge domestic violence relationships off of what they may have seen on TV or something they may have heard. But unless you're in that relationship and you're actually experiencing those things, you have no idea. You have no idea. You really don't. And you actually don't want to, honestly. Because to experience it is a whole different thing from like reading it somewhere. So when I tell you my experiences, it's because I have lived it, have went through it, I understand how it feels. I understand how broken a person can feel. You know, I understand how life can just feel like it's just passing you by. You know, and you feel like you want a helping hand, and you do want a helping hand, but then you're afraid of taking the help because you never know what it's going to mean for you, like what type of consequences you're going to have to suffer from asking for help, and if that person will find out that you've asked for help, and what that's going to mean for you. So many moments I would see, like I said, I would see police officers, my family, you know, and I just wanted to just like scream and just let them know like this is what's happening to me, you know. And it's a lot easier said than done. A lot easier, even with this station, like this YouTube channel. It has been very difficult for me to even talk about these things, because even as a survivor, you still feel that hurt sometimes. Like it just doesn't magically go away because you're out of the relationship. Yes, I'm a lot happier, healthier, all those things, but that hurt that I went through all those years, it's like, it feels like it's literally around the corner sometimes, you know. So me talking about this kind of puts me back in that space. That's why sometimes it's so difficult. So I never want to give off the impression that it's easy. Look at me. I'm just, you know, I'm just not feeling any of those things anymore. That's just not true. You know, I have better ways of coping with it. You know, when those thoughts come across, when those feelings come across, I know that I need to do more like self-care when I start feeling that way. Then I spend more time by myself sometimes when I feel that way, just reading like motivational books and just thinking about all the joyful moments that are in my life, and the supportive family that I have and relationships that I have. So those things help me as well. Just remembering that I'm a child of God and He is protecting me and watching over me. And I believe I went through that relationship in a sense, definitely, to be able to help someone else that's going through it. Domestic violence relationships leads to a lot of fear. I mean, fear about the unknown, fear about the known, fear about what the next second holds, what the next moment holds, what the next hour, days, or months hold, because you never really feel safe. You know, even though I am a survivor, thank God at this point, I never quite felt just safe, you know, safe in the sense to where, you know, kind of what the day ahead is going to bring. You know, in a domestic violence relationship, you have no safety. I mean, because you never know what's going to make them, like, you know, just get angry at you, because it can be little or nothing. You know, they have issues, it seems like, with any and everything. You know, it's like walking on eggshells, like literally. You know, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I never want to come across as telling you that it's easy to like leave those types of relationships. I think people that have never been in one like that, I would hope that no one ever get in a domestic violence relationship, or I hope people's relationships never turn into anything like that. But if you are not one that has been in a domestic violence relationship, it's going to be a lot that you're not going to understand about it. It's not something that we just, you know, grow up wishing or thinking that we're going to be in a relationship like that. And sometimes it doesn't even start off like that. You know, my relationship didn't start off like that. You know, he was sort of charming a little bit, just kind of playful. You know, we had fun together, like just told jokes and just kind of like being in each other's presence. But before long, you know, I started seeing the like red flags of jealousy. You know, he's being very jealous about any and everybody that I was around. anybody that I spent any type of time with, even like classmates even, because I was very young when it started, so I don't know if I let you know that information, but I was like in 8th and 9th grade, so I was, pretty young, like 14 maybe when this first started. And he was like 5 years my senior, which is something that should have never never happened. So I think he had the sense that he was gonna try to mold me into whoever he wanted me to be and however he wanted me to be. That's why it's so dangerous for like younger girls to be dating these older guys, because we just don't have enough experience, and at that age you really shouldn't be dating, in my opinion. But I guess to each their own, but just be careful with that. A lot of times when these younger girls are dating these older guys, a lot of times that's what they're doing. They're trying to mold them into whoever they want them to be, and they can be very manipulative, and it was just a lot that I didn't know. Like I said, the relationship didn't start off that way, but slowly but surely it ended up being that way. And some of the things he would do, like to just start that fear pattern in me, was like maybe like hit the door or something that was next to me, I guess just to kind of see what that would do. I think that was his way of kind of testing the waters, seeing how I would react. And a lot of times what the person is doing is they're just training you at that point to see what they can get away with, and if you'll let them do it. Because I've heard so many times that one person could be dating a person and there's no violence in it, but then they date someone else and then there's domestic violence. So it taught me that you basically teach people how to treat you. So if they know they can get away with that, they'll do it, because you're teaching them that it's okay. Not to blame anyone for being in a domestic violence relationship. I would never do that. Never. Because I do not believe that's anybody's choice to be in a relationship like that. I don't think people just kind of dream of being in a relationship like that. So I would never say that. But what I am saying is that we teach people how to treat us, even when we don't realize that's what we're doing. So when we let things go by and we continue to allow somebody to do something, then we're basically telling them that it's okay. And it really just like hurts me to the core to know that that's the position I was in, and just going through that was just shocking. Some people think that people that get in domestic violence relationships are ones that do not have a supportive family. That's not always true. I have a wonderful family, a very supportive family. So that's not it at all. Some people think that it's just because they're lacking something in their life. I didn't feel like that was the case with me. I really feel like it was just a case of being so young, not realizing what love was or wasn't, and just having, the wrong person, that I chose to date. Sometimes it has nothing to do with your upbringing or your family. It just doesn't. And I never want to make people think what I'm saying is that it's going to be easy to get out of a domestic violence relationship. I'm here to tell you sometimes it is not. It took me years to finally get out of that relationship and just stay gone. It was a few times that I left, but I went back. Several times that happened that way, but I went back. So my frame of mind, those times I went back, I'm not even sure I have enough information to even tell you what my frame of mind was, because your frame of mind is so just like screwed up, for lack of a better word, that you don't know what's good for you. You don't know what's not good for you anymore, because your mind has been so twisted in this type of relationship that you are literally in panic mode. You don't know what to do. So a lot of times when we're in panic mode, we don't make the best decisions. We don't, as human beings. We just don't. So it's very difficult to say that, okay, you just get up and leave one day. That took a while. That took a great while. That took me, like I said, years. It took a lot of introspection. I had to figure out, like, what is really going on? Like, how do I leave? When do I leave? When's the best time to leave? Are my kids going to be safe? Am I going to be safe? Is my family going to be safe? You know, all these different thoughts went through my mind when I got to the point where I figured I should leave. You know, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen overnight, because like I said, I was still in fear. You know, I didn't know, like I said, the best time to leave. I didn't know what was going to happen if I did decide to leave, and what would happen if he caught me as I was leaving. So I was just so afraid, and sometimes fear would just grip you in a way to where you cannot even make a decision. You cannot even leave because you're so afraid. You're so fearful. And that is a horrible, horrible feeling, to be so scared you cannot even make a decision that you need to leave. I think that was definitely one of the things that made me stay even longer, because he would always tell me that he would always find me. He would always be able to find me. He's always told me that I can find you no matter where you go. And he always threatened me with, if I take the kids, he's definitely going to find me, and it's not going to be nice. So I kind of had that idea floating around my head, you know, consistently, you know, thinking like, oh, so if he does find me, then is he going to like take my kids? Is he going to like do something to them? Like, I've never actually felt 100% that he would actually do anything to my kids. I didn't feel that would happen. But I also had a doubt, like, if he gets angry enough, then what will happen? You know, and it's very hard to just even go back and think about that time I spent with him, because I was just depressed. I was just depressed so much. And I would see, you know, sometimes police officers around or my family, and then you just want to cry out. Everything in you want to tell somebody. But yet you're so fearful. Like I said, fear is just crippled me. Like, it just kept me stuck for so long. And you're just kind of watching your life pass you by. It's like it's an outer body experience. You're just seeing all the things you would like to do, all the things you would like to partake in. You're thinking about how your life would be different if you wasn't with this person. But you still don't have the strength to actually get up and leave. Like, it's just not that easy. It's just not that simple. So I understand. I totally understand. But I will tell you one of the things that helped me. I think just kind of looking around and just journaling helped me a lot. I am a poet. I'm an author. And I use that as my outlet, like just writing. I wrote my feelings down. I would have different type of journals around the house. I would say how I wanted my life to be, what I looked forward to. Education was a big thing for me. I think I used that to kind of get out of the house, get away from him for a while. And I've always been like a pretty decent student, so I always wanted to learn more and more.